We're not going to call it a poltergeist, but USC made it to their first big conference media days. They're here.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to download your podcast, the show is always free, and the show will always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms will apply. Look, I'm not that little girl staring at the TV listening to ghosts. However, USC's contingency, they made it. They're out here in Indianapolis. And my flight left LA on time, sort of. And it's been one of those trips where you knew things were going to be interesting from the get-go. I'm standing there in the airport, getting ready to meander towards the gate when they start getting people onto the airplane. And I noticed the UCLA contingency was there. Yeah, I was forced to share my flight with the boys from Westwood. I saw Jay Toya, defensive tackle, Ethan Garbers, their quarterback, linebacker, Oluwafemi Oladejo. I really hope I pronounced that correctly. And I also saw, standing real close by, was their athletic director, Martin Germond. So they had their pretty much their whole crew, save for head coach Deshaun Foster, who I think was already in Indianapolis at this point. So they also had their sports information department, some helpers. The players that they brought along, they were in the back of the plane. As I was boarding, their athletic director was already seated in his seat, and he and I made eye contact. And he asked me, he goes, "Are you sitting here, same row?" I said, "No, you're the enemy." And he kind of looked at me. There was that awkward second of silence before I went. So I said, "Good luck in 2024." He laughed out loud. We shared a moment. So why am I pointing this out? Well, because while I'm flying coach American Airlines, USC, the players, they're flying private jet. Yeah, I didn't see the picture with Coach Riley. 3 players, Jonah Monheim, Miller Moss, and ironically, former UCLA Bruin, Kamari Ramsey. So I guess that's one difference I can point out between the two programs right now. You've got USC flying their players, first class, private jet. Meanwhile, you got some really good players at UCLA sitting in the back of the plane waiting for someone to ask them if they would like a full can of soda. I think if I can get an off-the-record moment with Kamari Ramsey at Media Day, I'm going to ask him which way he would prefer flying. I think I know the answer, but I want to see the look on his face when I tell him when I tell him the little anecdote. So again, I'm out here myself, and I also have Scott Schrader from USC. You know, that's the other place where I'm working when I'm not bringing you all the news and notes here on Locked On USC. So I'm going to have as much content as possible from my 48 hours in Indianapolis. And this is actually going to be the first time that USC gets to respond publicly to all the off-season talk. You know, and a lot of it's been coming from places that doesn't really make any sense, including SEC media days, of all places. Right? They held theirs last week. This week, it's the big conference media day. So you have USC, UCLA, the Pacific Northwest schools, Washington, Oregon. They're coming in as the new kids in the neighborhood, so to speak. Show and tell day. And I think they're going to get some, special attention regardless. However, has USC been getting some, extra shade for some reason this offseason? Look, a lot of the talk was about Lincoln Riley and, how the program took a step back in 2023, coming off of what they did in 2022. But again, it seems a little excessive that USC has been a main talking point for a program that's just, I don't know, what, middle of the road. At least that's the narrative. So if the energy is going to be all about USC, then I want USC to respond with big energy, big conference energy. They're going to take center stage 12:15 Eastern time on the Big Ten Network. So for those of you in LA, yeah, an early wake-up call, 9:15. This is what I envision Lincoln Riley kind of sitting there at the dais, Chestershire grin, arms kind of relaxed, folded like this. And, I mentioned the players they're going to have there. I would love to hear the Trojans who are representing themselves at the conference media day, kind of respond to Paul Feinbaum's unhinged rants, that he hurled towards Lincoln Riley. Remember, he said, I think he has an enormous amount to prove because, quite frankly, I think he's been a disaster. Let's go back 3 years. Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC. What did Lincoln Riley do? He ran away. I thought last year was one of the worst coaching jobs I've ever seen. Short-term memory, Paul obviously quickly forgot the job that Coach Riley did in year 1 at USC after he inherited a dumpster fire of a program. And he wasn't running away from the SEC. He was running to the big conference. He knew the job was dangerous when he took it. But again, Paul wasn't done. Quite frankly, had I been the athletic director at USC, I would have fired Lincoln Riley because he has yet to show, after many years as a head coach, he knows anything about defense. He's gone through defensive coordinators, plural. He just simply couldn't handle it, and now things are going to be 5 times worse in the Big Ten. This is a guy who owned LA for about half a minute, and next year at this time, I think he'll more than likely be an assistant in the NFL, if he's that lucky. So, yeah, you have to laugh at that kind of crap. And I didn't even tell you what he tried to come up, his solution was, when you fire Lincoln Riley, hire Coach Primetime. The old man has lost his marbles. Take away the keys. It's time to put Grandpa in an old folks' home. So what would happen if Coach Riley took the time to respond with that same type of hyperbolic energy? Instead of taking the high road, I want to hear someone from Muleshoe tell Paul how he really feels. I would love to see Coach Riley take a page out of Coach Kiffin's playbook and tell Paul in front of thousands attending to repeat the following statement. Say, Paul, do you remember who said this? I don't think there's any disputing this is one of the best hirings in recent memory. Lincoln Riley has gone to the playoffs several times. He has produced great players, top picks, and Heisman Trophy winners. And I think he'll win a national championship at USC. And I don't know if there's anyone else out there that you can say that about. This is a fantastic hire, a home run hire, as good as you can get. You need to make Paul read those words in front of everybody attending the big conference during the media days. At some point, he needs to do that. Because, again, that's what he said when USC bought him away from Oklahoma and the Southeast Conference. I mean, think about it. Imagine the Lucas Oil Field House, fully of the media members, from all over the country, being told, I need everyone to sit down, be quiet, listen up. I got a statement that I'm going to make Paul read. I mean, I loved it when Coach Kiffin told Mr. Feinbaum to his face, what are you even good at? I want Coach Riley to have one of those moments. He needs one of those moments. He's earned it this offseason, in my opinion. Real quick note before we get out of this segment. A lot of the old school Big Ten conference fans, they get a little upset with me when I call it the big. I don't call it the Big Ten. I call it the big. Well, let me explain to you why again, so everybody can hear it. When you have 18 members in your conference, 18 is a lot closer to 20 than it is to 10. And if you look at how they spell out the logo, capital B with a number 1 and a capital G, almost looks more like an 18 than a 10. Just saying. Sure, a lot of you, like me, you grew up spending some time at your favorite major league ballpark. Me, I was over there at Dodger Stadium. And I was doing that before tickets got expensive, before parking got expensive. And you know what? You don't have to pay expensive ticket deals anymore. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And with all in prices, they're going to show your total up front. That way you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. And you can buy your tickets in seconds. 2 taps. Trojan fans, we are 39 days away. Have you got your tickets for the game in Vegas yet? Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. Because if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, guess what? Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED, like David O-N, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You're watching Fox Sports, you're watching ESPN. One of those is typically on your TV all day long. And I guarantee if you're like me, you're hitting that mute button at least twice a day. You don't have to turn down the volume. Not with all that shouting if you make the switch over to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel, and it's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without yelling. They'll bring you can't-miss analysis, news, and opinions like me, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Is all of this Lincoln Riley, USC Trojans, they're just a complete fraud? When you hear that as a Trojan fan, how mad do you get? Curious. Or you're saying, you know what? All right, I'm going to cut that out. Bulletin board material. Let's put that up right there. I guess, logically thinking, if it's bulletin board material, it touched a nerve somehow. Did it make you mad? I don't know. Did it elicit some sort of emotion? I live by the credo that no one is going to make me feel something unless I want to feel that way. And I know we're human. I get it. Emotions tend to run to the beat of their own drummer. And the younger we are, let's be honest, the louder that drum beats. So is it okay for the team to use all this negative energy that's been, kind of hanging over them like a dark cloud and, shove it down everyone's throats? I guess what I'm saying is this. The fans, we use the off season to kind of get excited. We think about the possibilities of what could be if things bounce the right way in 2024. Then I would imagine the players, I would think they probably want to make a good first impression with the other neighborhood kids that they're introducing themselves to. You really don't want to, you don't want them to sense any type of weakness, because when you sense a weakness, you pounce on it, right? Survival of the fittest. That's what it's all about. Everyone's read the rumors. They've seen those not so deep fake videos of USC playing defense. And the more this narrative gets discussed, I think the more headstrong USC's fans and hopefully the team gets as the season starts to approach. Again, depending on when you're watching this episode of Locked On USC, should be your first watch every day. We're 39 days away. It's USC Media Day. today. So when does USC's underdog mentality? When are they? I don't know. When do those little things drop, and when do they turn into the alpha dog? When do they take over the yard? When do they need to be fixed? But USC is not a visitor. Okay, I want to make that clear. They are not a visitor to the big conference. They are a full-fledged member. I mean, they're getting top dollar from Jump Street. I mean, it's not like they had to beg to join the conference, right, Oregon? The more I hear, the more I hear things behind the scenes as far as how the team is preparing, I'm trying to dig in my heels a little bit. My 10-2 regular season prediction starting to solidify. Okay, I think there's a foundation that USC has. That they built a foundation during the offseason. They made the necessary home improvements. They made the adjustments that they had to. It started at the end of last season. Lincoln Riley took out a wall, took out one of his pillars that was holding up the structure, got rid of Alex Grinch, defensive coordinator. And obviously he replaced everybody, almost everybody on the defensive side of the ball as far as the coaching staff is concerned. He kept Coach Sean Nua. Taylor Mays is still around. And he brought in Coach Antonlynn from UCLA. He brought in Coach Matt Enns from North Dakota State. He brought in Doug Belk from Houston, who Georgia wanted. And we also know he also brought in Eric Henderson from the Rams. Top flight. Good defensive staff put together. We've seen pictures. I've reported to you, their off-season workouts, how much bigger the team looks. So the question is now, are they ready to carry that mentality? Are they ready to say, you know what? I've heard it all. We're not going to be pushed around anymore. I get it. We're the new kids on the block, but we're going to make sure you know that we might be new, but this is our home too. And no matter what, we're going to defend our home. I think that's the mentality. I think that's the attitude that USC is going to have this year. So yeah, wear that underdog, wear that on your sleeve early. But you got LSU. Once you beat them, what happens? Come home, prepare for Utah State, put that in the bank. Then you prepare for the reigning national champions, Michigan. Again, I'm not trying to get everybody's hopes up. I know this comes off sounding a little homerific, but that's where we are right now. We're talking about the possibilities. You have to anticipate Michigan's going to take a step back from what they were last year. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that USC can go into Ann Arbor, even with their weaknesses, and leave with a victory. Excuse me. We know USC is going to score points. We know Michigan's going to have a good defense, but they're going to take a step back this year. They just are. When you're making that many changes, it happens. Doesn't mean they're going to suck. Just means they're going to take a step back. So long-winded. USC's 3-0, 2-1. But if they're 3-0, all of a sudden you cannot wear the underdog mentality anymore. All of a sudden you are now the alpha dog, because wherever you are preseason ranked, number 5, number 6 in the conference, and wherever you are preseason top 25, if you're 2-1, 3-0, you're probably top 10 in the country, and you're coming home to play some games that you can really solidify yourself, and who knows where things go from there. I told you, once you get past that Penn State game, things become more advantageous towards USC as far as the schedule is concerned. The front part of the season, the schedule, front loaded. The back half, not as much. So we'll see. I really think that everyone's talking about USC right now. How are they going to be talking about USC after Media Day, after Game 1, and especially after the third game of the season? So they're talking now. Keep your receipts. Let's see who was right. Let's see who was close to being right. And let's see who was just completely off base and needs to come correct and say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Won't happen again. Could be me. I doubt it. Hope not. I know everyone's looking for an update from USC on USC's roster, possibly adding another defensive line guy to the room from Fresno State. When word got out that Jeff Tedford, Fresno State's the Bulldogs head coach, was stepping down due to health reasons, the offseason roster raiders went to work. You know what I'm talking about. You guys who literally ran to social media, ran to the wearesc.com message board and said, is there anybody on their roster that USC can use? I told you it felt really dirty. There's that loophole that for 30 days, if a team loses their head coach for whatever reason, they get 30 days to explore the transfer portal. So obviously the first name that everyone was listing was, they got a defensive tackle. His name is Gabriel Lightfoot, third-year player, excuse me. And he's from LA, from Centennial High School. All right. You're probably watching this episode of Locked on USC, what is it? July 24th, USC Media Day. And if you're watching it any day after that, it's making my point even stronger. Fresno State starts their fall camp, I believe, the end of July, August 1st at the latest. The last time I checked, the young man in question has not entered the transfer portal yet. So here's the question. Why not? USC needs interior help on the defensive line. He checks that box. Could be a variety of reasons. Okay. Again, we have a very small window to work with here. And let's look at it from the player's perspective and not just USC and USC fans' perspective. This young man has to make a big time decision in a very small amount of time. Number one, he's got his own team that he's already entrenched in. They're counting on him to be a big part of. And let me remind everybody, he did not explore the spring transfer portal. Back then, he knew USC needed help. So why hasn't he done it yet? I'm just throwing stuff out there of possibly what could be involved in the decision-making process. When I say academics, I'm not saying he doesn't qualify academically, but they do need to be checked. But how does that happen? How does USC get their hands on his transcripts until he enters the transfer portal? Catch 22. So while parties can communicate behind the scenes through third parties and saying everything's going to be okay or things will be okay, USC has to see the official transcripts. See what I'm saying? If you're not in the transfer portal, you can't see the official transcripts. And I think it would be really awkward if Gabriel walked into the records office and said, hey, can I have a copy of my transcripts? Number one, I'm not sure if they're allowed to give it to him right then and there. And two, it would be a sure sign that, hey, he's thinking about jumping in the transfer portal. I mean, it would start a forest fire. He probably wants a game playing time guarantee. I don't know if USC can give him that. They can't talk to him directly. Let's not be naive. They're talking behind the scenes through third party. If you think otherwise, you don't understand how the game works. So, again, what's going on with the communication process? How serious is everybody? Has USC looked at the film and said, you know what? Hey, we would love you to be a part of the team. You'll be a depth piece. You can work your way into the rotation. Is that going to be enough to lure him over? Maybe USC wants to get a guarantee that he's going to stay for 2 years. I'm not saying that's the issue. But if USC is going to, and I'm using the term, waste a scholarship on a player who, I'll say it again, I don't think he's a difference maker on USC's defense this year. If you can get him to commit for 2 years where you can help develop him, okay. Again, there's a lot of things going on in this decision-making process. I'm just trying to give you some insight of why you haven't heard anything, why he hasn't jumped in the transfer portal yet. And I'm saying this. Bottom line, it's not enough time. It just got started way too late in the process. So, yes, it could still happen last minute, 11 o'clock hour. I'm not feeling it. Again, there's just so much going on. You got to get ready for fall camp. All right, there we go. Another episode of Locked on USC in the books. I'll be coming back at you. Next time you hear from me, I'm going to have updates from the big conference media day. Might do something live. I don't know yet. We'll see how much time I have, what kind of time I have, how much running around I'm doing. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.